everybody this morning? Like all of you, this morning was a little mix of sliding, skating, shuffling to the car. Last night, I was kind of marooned here about all day yesterday from 8 o'clock till 5:15. And my wife came up here to join me, and she didn't know that it had been drizzling until she went out the front door yesterday and took the first step off our front step, and that was the last step for a second. Boom, down she went. And so a lot of you experienced that as well. Thank you for your faithfulness. It's all good now. I think at 8:30 we're still pretty icy, but it's all not only melted but dried out there. So anyway, all of us grow up with one great similarity. We all grow up hearing a lot of no's. Don't touch that. Don't watch that. Don't do that. No, you can't wear that to school. I know I've told this story before. So those of you that have heard it, I apologize. But it's one that a lot of people like. You know the story. My dad decided to live a little different way, and every February he would go on a vacation with his second wife. They would go to Jamaica, and they would spend time there. There was one year he came back from Jamaica. I happened to be in 7th grade at the time, and he came back with a T-shirt from Jamaica. And I didn't know where Jamaica was. But I was proud that I had a shirt from Jamaica. And so my dad came and visited and gave me the shirt. And I said, on Monday, I'm going to wear my brand new shirt from Jamaica. It was a white T-shirt, and there was an orange circle right here. In the orange circle was a picture of a green plant. And I didn't know what the green plant was. It just looked like a green plant. And in the orange circle were letters, also in green. And I'm going to tell you what the shirt said. It said, Ganja Farmers Union, Local 573. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what that was. I assumed it was a cash crop. I was right, but I didn't know what the crop was. And I wore that to school. That was the Monday that my mom got a call from the principal. That was also, oddly enough, the same day my dad got a call from my mom. And so sometimes you hear even from the principal, no, you can't wear that here. No, you can't stay out till 2 a.m. No, you can't hit your sister with the dog. The job of a parent is often to keep our children alive. As a result, there are a lot of no's. And it's easy to carry this experience over to faith. And if we're not careful, faith can become a collection of all the right no's in life. Now, there's good reason for a lot of these no's because many people ruin their lives by ignoring some very smart no's. Yet this should never be our goal. We do not look for collecting no's. We are called to be something. We're not called to just avoid things. This is in many ways a neglected, under-talked about part of Christianity. I want to read Philippians chapter 2. Paul's writing, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Not looking to your own interests, but each of you should look to the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. I love this translation. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Now, let me admit some things right off the bat. Oh, the Bible does have some no's in it. Let's not kid ourselves. I've collected a few. These might not be ones that you're familiar with. 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 7. Do not be like your ancestors who were faithless. It's a warning not to follow after the bad examples of some people that went before us. In short, learn lessons from the people around you. Smart people will learn lessons about their own life. Wise people will look at the lives of other people and figure out what to avoid and what to emulate. Psalm 32:9. This is not one you hear a lot in VBS. Don't be like a donkey without understanding. I think it's another little short way to say, live a life of wisdom. Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 8 says this, don't be rebellious. I think that's a little encouragement for us to have proper motives. Now, I like a little bit of rebellion every now and then. I like it. I like it especially when it's involving thoughtless, baseless, unfair, unrighteous, evil standards, rules, laws, precepts. Don't follow something just for the sake of following it. But don't be rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious. Matthew 6:8. Do not be like the world. Okay. I think Matthew's just trying to tell us, most of what you see out there is not worthy of your emulation. I've stated for a long time, especially occasionally when I talk to teenagers or kids, I say, if you walk in a room and 100 people are all going in that direction, purposely go the opposite direction. You will be right more than you're wrong. A similar thought is in Romans chapter 12, verse 1, which is the verse in our Kids Corner area. Do not be conformed to the pattern that you see or find in this world. It's a simple suggestion for us to be different and to be holy. But still, there's this regular pattern of life. We grow up mostly hearing no. I bet some of you had some other interesting no's. My single mother, terrified at a lot of the boy world, had a simple no. No playing tackle football with your friends. I had change of clothing stashed at other kids' house in the neighborhood so I could play tackle football, then change clothes. And their mom would do the laundry. They'd just slip it in with their laundry. They'd never know. First, I think we all need to learn the things that will hurt us. But I think often parents fear that some accident will hurt their child. And that is a fear we all have. And so we have a lot of the no's for the safety, especially of our kids. Here's the problem. The problem starts with kids, but gets worse as we get older. Safety isn't even a winning strategy with kids. Our children need a little bit of adventure. They need a little bit of danger. They need a little bit of challenge to overcome. Adults are the same way. We need to stretch. We need to be challenged. We need to learn. We need to do new things and take a risk every now and then. People who are never able to take a risk, or people who are not allowed to take a risk, end up being stifled. If our faith is just a series of no's, our faith ends up the same way. It's stifled. It's never stretched. It's never challenged. It never tries anything new. It never trusts. It never relies on God. It just avoids all the stuff. So believers who do nothing but avoid the big no's end up being a little stifled as well. I think all of us remember that friend we used to have, or maybe that person we worked with when we were young, or maybe that person we knew in college who grew up in a home that was very strict and very kind of oppressive, and all they heard was no and never allowed to do anything. And the first chance they got in the adult world or college is they went wild in the other direction. That's an ever-present danger. The good news is this. Christianity is not, it was never meant to be a series of no's. Paul knew this in all his letters. When he looked back on his experience with the law, he said, wait a minute, the law is no longer in force for you Christians. And some of his early critics were, wait, how dare you? How dare you denigrate the law and say that the law is bad? And Paul says, wait a minute, I didn't say it was bad. The law is holy, righteous, and good. That's Romans 7. But if that's where you're stuck, you have a problem, because the problem with the law is it was only meant to be temporary. It was meant to keep you safe for a while, but then when you become fully adults in Christ, when the fullness of time, you're expected to get beyond it. My mom probably said all the time growing up, look both ways before you cross the street. And I did. She even yelled it long after I knew to look both ways before I crossed the street. Now, I still look both ways before I cross the street, but I don't need someone to tell me to look both ways to cross the street. See, we're called to do something deeper than just avoid all the no's. We're called to live like Christ. In our purpose statement, last week we talked about we exist to help people live with, that's what we talked about last week, new creation. We're called to be different. A new creation are people who live by faith. New creation are people who look for reconciliation. New creation are people who forgive easily. Hang on, that's not the right word. It's not easy to forgive. We forgive purposefully. We forgive willingly, even as we know it's not easily done. We look to patch things up. We look to build bridges. It's also a new creation. We reject a lot of the old. We live in a world that's decaying. We live in a world where we see a lot of the old. We reject a lot of what we see, and we forge a new way. Hunger and thirsting for righteousness. People being peacemakers. Things that Jesus talked about. Loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Even as the world that says, no, it's good to love God a little bit. That's a part. It's a segment. It's one little part of your balanced sheet. A little bit here, a little bit here. Even if God says, love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Loving your neighbor as yourself. There's this expectation that we will be different. And one of the things that bothers me sometimes is when sometimes in the church we choose to not be different. We all live in a world, most of us, where everybody loves the idea of forgiveness. We love the idea of acceptance. We love the idea of love and grace, and all of those things are wonderful and good and not to be diminished, but we choke on this idea of transformation. That God actually expects us to be a little different. In each generation, people have heard this expectation to be different, and they've mistaken this for some simple external standard. Your hair's got to be so long. You have to wear this kind of clothes. And we see that all over the world. We see often women have to be covered from head to toe. In other communities, women can't cut their hair. In other communities, men have to dress a certain way. They reject worldly things like blue jeans. I don't know how blue jeans got to be worldly. Or rejection of makeup or jewelry or all the various things. Sometimes the embrace of certain kinds of jewelry. It all becomes about externals. But they reject the idea of transformation. Even in the Old Testament, go look at Exodus chapter 20 where we have the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are just not these rules that drop out of the sky. There's a little bit of a preamble to it that starts like this. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery and bondage. Or, I'm the God who's done all of this for you. Have no other gods before me. Don't make a little idol out of a piece of wood and worship it. Honor your father and your mother. Remember the Sabbath day. And some of these things, even we think about these as rules. Up until the Ten Commandments, all of humanity, unless you were king, you worked 7 days a week. You worked from light until dark. You were just a beast of burden. The Lord, the king, the military ruler, he controlled every aspect of your life. You worked all the time. And then the Ten Commandments jump in, and we read this. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. On that day you shall not do any work. For the first time, we have these words. Here's a day, no work is to be done. This is time carved out for worship, time carved out for family, time carved out for conversation. And by the way, this is the day that's holy, not the other 6. So if you love your weekend, you can thank God for that. Literally thank God for this. We live now out of relationship. We live out of gratitude. We live out of a sense of joy because of what's been done for us. We have words like, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And that's a tough one. But that word that's translated perfect does not mean flawless. It means whole, mature, complete, being used according to your purpose. It doesn't mean flawless. So if we're to not only help people live with Christ, we're also to live like Christ. So what's the implications? We cannot forget that part of living with Jesus is also this expectation to live like Jesus. This is not new. This happens in every area of life. If I want to be, let's make something up. If I want to be a good bowler, I have to do the things that a good bowler does. I have no idea what that is. I have to practice, I'm sure. I have to have just the right weight of ball. I have to practice my technique. Have to do all these things. If I want to be a good tennis player, I better go outside and I need to practice. I need to practice serving. I need to find a big brick wall somewhere and just bang a ball against the wall and practice my backhand and my forehand and get really skilled at everything. If I want a good marriage, I need to live a certain way. We respond out of gratitude. We respond to serve. We don't respond from fear. I think boredom is underappreciated. It's funny, there's a lot of things. If you remember back, it might be college when you were just dating. And before you'd go out, you had to be sure your hair looked just right. You had to be sure you had on your best outfit. You had to be sure everything was just right. You didn't want to be caught outside looking not your best. And now you're in year 25 of your marriage, and your favorite robe is in year 23. And you get comfortable, and that is good. You don't want to live in the constant fear that if you don't get everything just right, that someone else is going to, your spouse is going to leave or lose interest or something like that. We still live out of gratitude. We still live out of a desire to serve, not out of fear. Many well-intentioned people want to live with Jesus and get the benefits of grace and prayer and acceptance, and all that is good, but we never then try to live like Jesus. We have some. And I'm happy that both sides of the debate, I think, are guilty of this a little bit. Let me explain. We have some in our culture right now who try to have all the right opinions. All the ones that society and the media smile at, all the culturally accepted opinions. Look at my opinions. Look at my virtue that I present before everyone on social media. Look at my political voting record. But they're not too concerned about living faithfully themselves. There's a whole lot of people that show their righteousness by having votes that force other people to give up their money, but willingly give up their own money. Oh, no, they'd never do that. Look at my vote. Look, I like something. Look at this background I have. I've put this ribbon next to my picture on social media. Look how wonderful, holy I am. They don't need to change. Their political position is enough. On the other side are maybe those who delight in personal morality. Look how clean I live. Look at all the right no's that I avoid. Look how righteous I am. It all becomes so much about living up to this external standard that it ceases to be about a daily walk with the person of Jesus Christ. They so much want to show how they live like Jesus in the way that they think Jesus is. They never get around to living with Jesus and listening to that still small voice. See, this is where the balance is. When we try to live like Christ, when we try to take pride in morality, when we try to take pride in ethics, or without the modifying effects of relationship, we become moral zealots. So proud of our moral stance, and somehow in it we cease to be Christian anymore. There are so many people out there, you can be a moral person, you can be a righteous person, you can be a good person, you can do all the right things and really still be disconnected from Christ. Really? Do you know someone like that? Yeah, his name's the Apostle Paul. And that's exactly how he described himself in Philippians. When we seek only to pursue love and forgiveness, and we fail to hold ourselves to a higher standard, or we refuse to allow God's transformative work to take place, then we become followers of a therapeutic deism. God helps me self-actualize and reach my goals and all that stuff, but I cease to really bear any marks of Jesus Christ. See, it's important. If we all live like Jesus, whatever we think that standard is, somewhere along the way we can lose the wonderful stuff about living with Jesus, the forgiveness and the grace. If all we care about is all the warm, fuzzy stuff and we forget about the other side, then we cease to have any difference. There's power in living with Jesus and in living like Jesus. And here's the thing. If all we do is one or the other, I don't think we'll ever be as effective as we should be. I think there is something about being people of grace. The whole world, even as they do something different, will all go to like a 50th wedding anniversary. And the couple who's been married 50 years will go up and they'll hold hands, or they'll give each other a kiss, and all the crowd will go, oh, isn't that? They'll clap and they're sweet, and you'll have a tear because they know that there's something special there that we've lost. And I think when we become so righteous and so happy with our moral stance, that we fail to embrace or walk with people who are struggling. And I think people look at that and they see, no, there's something missing there. The balance is important. I want us to live with Jesus. I want us to be people of prayer. I want us to be people who've experienced forgiveness. I want people who've experienced grace. I want people who feel the Spirit who lives with them and in them and through them. All that's important. But I also want people who live like Jesus, whose lives are different. It does make a difference. And both are necessary. And that's why we both have them in our statement.